You're watching Ramping Up Your English. I'm your host, John Letts, and this is segment 3 of episode 62. For the last few episodes, we've been looking at life cycles as an important aspect of your animal report. Now let's look at one more classification of animal and its fascinating life cycle, the frog. Now a frog is neither a reptile nor a fish, yet it's a little of both when you look at its life cycle. A frog is an amphibian. Now we found information about frogs from this flip chart. That's a good source as it not only contains information, it breaks the cycle down into its parts. Now here we see the top of the chart. You can see some of the steps in the life cycle and some text in the middle. Now we can see the text more clearly. The frog begins life as an egg that is laid by a female frog in water. The young tadpoles, or larvae, hatch from the jelly-like mass of eggs. The tadpole has external gills to allow it to breathe underwater. As it matures, the tadpole starts to develop legs, first the hind leg, then the front legs. After the tadpole has developed its lungs, it's ready to leave the pond. The tail will be reabsorbed into the body. The young frog will remain close to the water until one day it finds a mate and the cycle will begin again. Now we can copy the fact from the text, being careful not to use the connecting language this writer used. It's that connecting language we'll want to learn so we can apply it to any animal that has a multi-step life cycle. Now here are some of the basic facts we noted from the chart. Eggs, tadpoles, external gills, legs, hind first then forelegs, lungs, leaves the pond, absorbs tail, later finds mate. So now we have all the information we need. If we wonder what the note means, we can go back to that chart. Now before forming sentences, let's look closer at the life cycle of frogs. Frogs are cold-blooded vertebrates that begin their life as eggs. I remember wading through a flooded rice field when I was a teenager and finding a clear jelly-like mass with black dots in it. Well, what I found that day was a mass of frog eggs. Now, there's a great little picture book from Scholastic that traces the life cycle of frogs. It's entitled Tadpole to Frog by Melvin and Gilda Berger. It begins where the chart did. Remember all those eggs I found? Well, by the way, there were hundreds of them. The book informs us that the mother frog lays eggs in the water. Then the tadpole starts to grow inside the egg. A tadpole comes out of the egg. A tadpole looks more like a fish than a frog. A tadpole can breathe underwater. That's because it has gills, but unlike fish, those gills are on the outside of its body. A tadpole grows front legs, and now we know that from the chart that the tadpole grew the hind legs before the front legs. The following stage is a big transition from a water animal to a land dweller. With lung development, it can now live outside of the water, and at this point, it looks more like a frog than a tadpole, but it still doesn't quite look right with that tail still attached. Now, if you felt awkward when you were an adolescent, imagine how a juvenile frog might feel with that stub of a tail. Well, finally, the frog achieves adulthood. Now it gets busy looking for a mate. Like so many animals, frogs can't reproduce without one. They croak at night, hoping to get the attention of a frog of the opposite sex. The eggs are laid in the water, and the cycle starts all over again. Now, having read this simple book, we may have a better handle on the notes we took. Let's take another look at those notes. The first note is about eggs. I've enlarged the words connecting the facts. The life of a frog begins. Now, as I then added the facts from my notes plus what I learned from the book. So then I added a fact I knew from reading and listening. And now let's look at the second note. It's about tadpoles. Now take a quick look at our notes and we'll compare and then compose a sentence. Now notice the connecting words in large print. As the eggs start to mature, tells where in the process we are. At the next stage, transitions to the next fact we learned. So now let's look at the next note we took. It says external gills. We'll get creative with how we present this fact. So we write about the gills that let the tadpole get oxygen without coming to the surface to breathe. We're back to the basic facts. These tadpoles, so much like little fish, and now they start to do what fish could never do. The legs start to emerge. First the hind legs, then the forelegs. So we write that the next notable change is the emergence of the legs. Now, we didn't just throw in the word next. We used it in a phrase that makes a clear transition of sequence. Now let's look at our notes again. Here's an extremely important change to note, for this is where the frog takes an irreversible change to a land animal. Never again will this individual be able to stay indefinitely underwater. We even use the word transition to note this change. For the last time, we check our notes. Now we note the final stages in the frog's life cycle. Having shifted to life as a land animal, the frog goes through some final physiological changes and starts the process of reproduction. This will start the life cycle for the eggs that are laid in the water and the life cycle of a new generation. Now, amphibians like frogs, newts, and salamanders are like reptiles, yet they differ in several ways. Amphibians don't have scales like reptiles, and they can absorb some of their oxygen directly from their skin. Amphibians need to stay near water. Not all reptiles do. Now, we found the frog life cycle information on the flip chart. Let's look at some other places where we can gather information about a frog's life cycle. Remember those wildlife cards we used in earlier episodes? There's a section inside each one under the heading of breeding. Now, the section on breeding for this marine mammal even has illustrations that relate to the life cycle. The life cycle information for the report includes details on how the young are brought up through their immature years to become a mature adult. Now, we'll take a closer look at that, plus we'll introduce the concept of adaptations in our next episode. Meanwhile, you can get in touch with me. Send an email to letscreatepro@gmail.com. Visit my website at letscreate.org for all the support materials for this episode. Just navigate to the episode 62 page. You can watch and even download all episodes of Ramping Up Your English at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Use the search box by entering Ramping Up Your English. You'll find all the episodes there. Ramping Up Your English can be seen in Ashland on Channel 15 on the Ashland Home Network and in the rest of Southern Oregon on Channel 182. Showtimes are 8 a.m. on Mondays, 7:30 p.m. on Thursdays. Visit rvtv.edu for free live streaming. Sometimes will vary in different areas, so check your local public access and education stations. I want to thank my director, Denise Ross, and my talented and loyal crew, and I want to thank you, our viewers. All of you help make this program an award winner. Join us next time for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate-level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.